You know, I think there's a number of you in this room that work for a board of directors or a city council or serve on one of those boards or councils. And I think you all must recognize how important a board of directors is, a group of folks that are committed to the organization and the goals of the organization. And I have to say at TRIDEC, I feel very fortunate that we've really had a great group of board members. I mean, throughout the 50 years, but certainly in the 10 years that I've been here, it's really been a pleasure to work with them. And frankly, I hate to see some of them, in fact, I hate to see all of them go. It would be better if we could somehow keep them on the board, but obviously we have a 42-member board, and it would get a little bit unwieldy, so it's impossible to do that. But I want to thank the board members personally. You know, I'm sorry that Jim isn't here, and I understand Jim's retired. He's got a higher calling. He can be at spring training, but you know, Jim's been a great chair over the last 2 years, and as I look at back in my 10 years here, the chairs that we've had, I've really been fortunate. Sandy Matheson, Fran Forget, Len Peters for a short period of time, then Mike Schwank, and certainly Jim, as well as I'm really happy that Mike Kloos agreed to be chair for 2014. It's our honor to have you, Mike, so we really look forward to this year. So I want to thank you. As important as board of directors and a chair is, the staff at TRIDEC and the team at TRIDEC that really have their boots on the ground in the trenches every day, promoting the community, working with companies, trying to help them expand, recruiting companies to the community, working with our congressional delegation is really important. And again, I feel very fortunate that we've got a very strong staff, and it's been a very stable staff, stable in terms of turnover or lack of turnover. I thought about using that term in a psychiatric manner too, but it's really been a pleasure to have them on staff, and I'd like them to stand as I introduce them and remain standing, and if we could hold applause until I'm finished. Gary Peterson, who's our Vice President of Hanford Programs. Bryson Bailey, our Director of Business Recruitment. Bryson's in the back there. Gary White is not with us today, but he's our Director of Business Retention and Expansion. Tracy Zhao, a Project Manager. Kayla Pratt, and Tracy's largely responsible for this event today, so thank you, Tracy, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Kayla Pratt, our Director of Communications and Membership. Laura Warr, who's our Director of Finance. And I want to especially recognize Laura also because this is her 20th year at TRIDEC. And so Laura, thank you for those years of service. And of course, she's only to be outdone by Jane Foreman. I'm skipping around here now, but Jane's been with us a few years longer than that. Betty Compton, our bookkeeper. Sue Ann Burton, our receptionist. And then for those of you that don't know, I think Mike Lawrence is here. Is he here somewhere? Well, I was going to introduce Mike as being a volunteer for TRIDEC and has chaired our Mid-Columbia Energy Initiative and really has been an advisor on what I'll call all things nuclear for the past couple of years. So Mike's been a great asset to the community. Also wanted to just mention that the Small Business Development Center is officed in the TRIDEC office suite. This past year, this Service Corps of Retired Executives moved into TRIDEC's offices. And then we also have a third tenant who's with us today, Rebecca Weber, who's an international marketing specialist with the Washington Department of Agriculture. So Rebecca, where are you? You're someplace here. She's in back. So thank you, TRIDEC staff. As Mike said, you're going to receive a folder of information as you leave today, if you choose to take it. It's got several things in it, but it also includes our 2013 annual report. Since you'll have that annual report, I'm going to make my comments brief so we can get to our speakers today. Just a reminder, TRIDEC's mission is really to improve the health of the Tri-Cities, economic health of the Tri-Cities region. While economic diversification is really the name of the game, we also try to undertake activities that will lead to stability in the federal budgets of our local operations, such as PNNL and Hanford. Oftentimes, TRIDEC leads the community in issues of economic importance, and we almost always work with our partners, the cities, the counties, the ports, private sector certainly, but other institutions in the community in doing our work. And we believe collaboration is extremely important. Building a foundation, celebration, uncertainty, and close only counts in horseshoes are some of the words and phrases that come to mind as I think about 2013. During 2013, TRIDEC initiated several projects which will lay a foundation for activities over the next several years. First, we retained a team led by TadZo consultants, including Don Schjeldahl Group, Applied Economics, Comerford Consulting, and ROI to conduct an analysis of new target industries for our region. We asked them to identify target sectors which present the best opportunity of success in new business recruitment. This work will guide TRIDEC's business recruitment efforts and some of our retention and expansion efforts over the next several years. And in just a few minutes, you're going to hear from Allison Larsen and Don Schjeldahl, who will report the results of their findings. So that will be the first time that this information is being made public. We believe that community identity, or maybe the lack of community identity in the Tri-Cities, has sometimes put us at a disadvantage in terms of attracting new business and visitors. TRIDEC has partnered with the Visitor and Convention Bureau, the Tri-City Regional Chamber, and with some help from Triports to establish a new community brand. The process is being led by Roger Brooks International, a well-known expert in branding communities. And in fact, Roger and his team are here in the community this week, camped out, I think, over in the Bechtel boardroom in our offices, working on that brand. And we're excited to see the results of that project, which should be complete sometime around mid-year, so just in a couple months. From TRIDEC's perspective, the results of the branding process will be used in our business recruitment efforts and retention efforts, as well as to unify some of our marketing materials, collateral materials, and that sort of thing. In another partnership with the Visitor and Convention Bureau, in 2013, we embarked on an effort to create a community vision for public access at Hanford. Hanford is being cleaned up, and I think that's a strong message that we all have to recognize. And the community, we believe the community needs to take a more active role in what the future of that use of that Hanford lands will be in the post-cleanup future. Last month, the board of directors of both TRIDEC and the Visitor and Convention Bureau endorsed a draft vision, and we'll be asking many of our partners in the community to also endorse that vision before we formally transmit it to the Department of Energy. So over the next several months, you're going to be getting a call from me or Chris Watkins or somebody representing us to see if we can get on agendas and get some endorsements for that public vision. As most of you know, TRIDEC celebrated its 50th anniversary and the organization's many accomplishments at a gala event combined with our annual meeting last year. By most accounts, the event was one of the Tri-Cities' best and highlighted 50 years of Tri-City history, as well as the role played by TRIDEC. Uncertainty. Are we getting a pattern here? Foundation, then I went to celebration, and now I'm at uncertainty. But uncertainty about the short-term economic outlook for the Tri-Cities was felt during the second half of 2013 as Congress failed to pass a budget again. You know, as we ended the year, we were staring at about around 450 potential layoffs at Hanford. And with the passage of that omnibus spending bill, it resulted in about less than 20, I think, layoffs. So we kind of dodged the bullet. But I will say that typically when something like that's happening, Gary in the office or I in the office will get a call from those congressional delegations asking about what the community impact is to certain congressional actions. We were able to transmit that information to them, and I'd like to think that what we told them about the impact in the community had some level of impact on their deliberations about how that bill was passed. And so that's just an example of how TRIDEC works, I think, a little bit behind the scenes, but how important it is to the community. For the second straight consecutive year, the Manhattan Project National Heritage Park failed to receive approval from Congress. Our congressional representatives, certainly Doc Hastings and our two senators, tried to pull out all the stops and get this legislation passed. It passed the House, and this is the horseshoe reference, but it was oh so close in the Senate, I think within just hours of going onto the Senate floor. So, you know, why is that important to the community? In my mind, public access to Hanford as well as public access to Hanford as well as a national park is not what I'd consider to be exactly core business of TRIDEC. But at the same time, those things put us on a map, and that's partly identity. We get put on a map for being a national park. We get put on a map for having tremendous recreational opportunities and that sort of thing. The second thing is, and probably more important, in 2013, 10,000 visitors toured Reactor. Recognition as a national park could mean that number to go to 100,000 a year in the future. And so that's a big economic impact to the community. With Congressman Hastings retiring in 2014, 2014 is a must year for the passage of that legislation. If we don't get it done this year, I think we're in trouble. In 2014, as I look ahead in 2014, I see a reinvigorated business recruitment effort at TRIDEC based on the results of this TadZo team and Roger Brooks. There will be further discussion about transferring land at Hanford for economic development purposes, as well as about public access. We will continue at TRIDEC to support the city of Kennewick in its efforts to not only expand the urban growth boundary, but also for industrial development south of Southridge, I'll call it, or south of Interstate 82. You know, and with the Tri-City Airport modernization project due to kick off really later this spring, but certainly underway midsummer, we're going to continue to work with the Port of Pasco and the airport in trying to identify new carriers and new routes to serve that modernized airport, and we think that's extremely important. I want to just close by echoing something that Mike had started with, and that was simply the most important thing I want to close in saying is thanks to our members for their support. TRIDEC could not continue our mission and our vision of a prosperous and diverse economy without the investment of the people in this room. So we really appreciate your support and look forward to that support as we go forward. Now I'd like to just switch gears a little bit and introduce our program for today, Allison Larsen and Don Schjeldahl. I'm doing this from memory since I forgot their bios, but I got a little information from them. Allison formed her consulting firm in 2013 after about 19 years in economic development and 12 of the last years with a well-known economic development consulting firm, Chapin Concepts. And she has been in my position early in her career and has spent a number of these years then consulting. Don Schjeldahl has been in a career for 35 years in economic development, primarily in site selection. Don spent 27 years with the Austin Company developing site location strategies for corporate clients and formed his group just last year also. In the meantime, Don did some work in the craft brewing industry and Sierra Nevada Brewery that located a new brewery in the southeast part of the United States. So with that, I think we're excited to see what the results of their analysis is of the community. And so please welcome Don and Allison.
Good afternoon. Thank you for, I won't yell at you. Thank you for not just this opportunity today to expose our findings and share our findings here, but also to the warm hospitality and the endless effort of trying to show us and teach us more about your community. I can assure you that we know a lot about your community. We are excited to learn more over the years as you progress with hopefully many of the recommendations that we have put forth here, and I can't express enough appreciation to the staff for helping us navigate, answer the tough questions that we needed answered in order to make really good analysis and give you good feedback accordingly. So, on to the results. So this project involved basically 4 different components. And the research started with, like I said, getting to know your community. In fact, we gave you a report card on many of the fundamental factors for site selection, as well as data on new economy indicators that show how you fare according to new economy. Items that influence, or new economy factors that influence how you can accelerate the type of industries you could attract. With that information, we then went on to analyze industry trends and opportunities to identify recommended industries, which we'll share with you today. But we took it a step further and said, what are competitors doing in these same target industry areas? And who are you up against? What are they doing that could be helpful for you as you move forward in implementation? And then finally, because we don't believe in studies for the sake of studies, we as a team collectively worked on recommendations for action. Because if all you do is read the report and say, hey, that was interesting, we've really failed you. We want to make sure that you get into action and act upon these recommendations. This is probably no surprise to you. The change is inevitable. And you really have a chance, though, to think about, is that change going to mean to the decline of your economy, or will you end up at a future prosperity? It's going to be up to you. The question is, how will you impact that change? That's what economic development's all about, is that you can influence the way growth occurs in a way that you're building on competitive features and facts and all those things we were studying so that you can attract investment, you can support local investment in a way that leads to prosperity. And you're doing it in a way by understanding industry needs so that you're better preparing your community with those assets to support those industries. We believe that you're choosing to influence this in a very positive way. And so we thought we would, because there's so much information in this project, and we love data, and that's really important, but that can be sometimes hard to get your arms around. So I think this is what it really came down to for us, is this bar chart. And this bar chart, to a large degree, you're like, huh? I didn't come to an economist. I'm not an economist. You don't need to be. What we want you to see is the bimodal distribution of this information. What this represents are your basic industries, which is a term we use a lot in economic development that talks about, or that refers to industries that export goods outside the area and in turn have a greater generation of wealth. So in contrast to that, retail sales, although very important for livability of a community, tend to circulate wealth within an economy. So we're looking at those industries that are generating new wealth into your economy. And they cluster under these different topics along them. On the left there, everything from agriculture all the way into research and engineering and the higher end. Well, we took these industries and said, let's not just look at them for how many you have or what the growth is. Let's look at them based on the wages they pay, because we can look at average wages by industry sector. And then we went on to segment that and kind of clustered them by different tiers. So at the low end, those are jobs that are under 32,000. Whereas the high bar kind of scales on up, but the high bar, which is also very high on that, to your right there, that represents industries with wages that average greater than 87,000 per person, per employee. So this is great. This is your economy here in the Tri-Cities region. You have a lot of strength. You have a lot of strength at the lower end, which you wouldn't be surprised is agriculture. These do not include service jobs. Again, remember, we're focused on basic industry. We kind of work up into the medium low, and we see more in the food processing and some other kind of basic manufacturing. And then up further at the other end of the scale is where we're really seeing a lot more of the research and development and waste remediation. A lot of you would say, yeah, the Hanford stuff or the North Richland type of jobs. Actually, they're all throughout your region. And why this stands out to us is that a lot of communities don't look like this. In fact, we're not sure we've ever run across one like this before. Most of them, they're kind of more bell-shaped, or they're really high and low and they peter really let down on the high. So this is a good thing. It's also revealed to us something kind of risky for you though. And that is that I know there are ups and downs in agriculture, right? But for the most part, it's really good here. And for many decades and decades to come, the federal government, which supports a lot of the high-end jobs, at least contributes a lot to the funding for those high-end jobs, is pretty good too. And what we're kind of, our observation being outside of the area, is that there's a risk in that for you, in the sense that, you're comfortable. A lot of really successful communities had to go through a pain period, and that's where action is stimulated. So in this case, we're looking at, you're comfortable, but you have risk there. Because what you really want in a perfect economy is a very diverse economy, such that all of these bars are high. So if any one of these industries drop low, then you still have a really stable economy out of that diversification. I say that because as we look at our targets, we're trying to help you fill in the gaps. So filling in the gaps here, focus on these targets. And with these targets, you can see that they're not all at the high end, they're not at the low end, but they're also not, they cover a scale across those wage opportunities. We, at one point, thought, well, maybe we just need to go look at the middle part of the range, which would be more of the tie-light types of operations that you have here. Let's just go get more of those. The challenge you have is you don't have a base to build a business case off of one company or a few companies, and you can see why. You got a small bar there, right? So we want to look at ways. I think the best way to understand that is, how can we take the outer ends, the assets and the strengths that you have in these really high bars, and work to the middle by leveraging the assets and the strengths and the advantages you have from the outside, at the outer ends. And that's essentially what these targets do. So we're going to go into each of these targets now. We worked through a lot of data on industry trends. And let me tell you, we didn't look just at the region. Because if we only look at the region, then we don't get any ideas of opportunities of what else is possible in the business climate. So we did look statewide at Washington and statewide at Oregon, because in many cases you share some of the same advantages, and that would be relevant. I talked about our first phase of the project was in competitiveness. So we took what we identified as your strengths, and also those weaknesses or limiting factors, to screen out potential opportunities. And then finally, because of our industry knowledge and market knowledge with working with businesses of many growing industries, current site selection projects, then we evaluated market opportunities that may not come up on any list that we know are good opportunities based on the assets that you have. So kind of a three-tier funnel, if you will, of industry data, then the screening on capabilities, screening out based on your limitations, and finally on market opportunities. And now Don's going to talk about the energy.
Okay. All right, thanks very much. And thanks, Carl, and to TRIDEC for taking this on. This is really, really important. Doing site selection for 30 years, I've had the privilege, I guess, of going to communities, you know, every 5 or 10 years, going back, seeing where they are in their process of going through time. And some communities just never sort of grasp on to the fact that they need to change over time. Everything changes. I've been here a number of times over the last 20 years or so, and you know, you've got this stability kind of built in, as Allison talked about. But change will come, and you inevitably will need to make adjustments to your strategy for attracting new investment. And this is a great time to be doing this when you don't have that sudden need. I mean, many communities don't have that choice. The big employer leaves town, and next day they've got to get to work. This is a great time to be doing this. So we've looked at, as Allison said, we've looked at industry trends. I've spent, you know, my life 30 years doing corporate site selection, and to survive that long and doing that type of consulting work, you know, I've always had to try to stay out in front of industry to know what's coming, what are the new trends, what are the new site selection decision drivers. And so we've applied that to, as Allison said, the industry trends, what your capabilities are in the community, and what's out there in terms of companies looking. And so we came up with these targets. I'm just going to quickly go through some of our thinking on these targets. And of course, as Allison said, the report is very hefty, a lot of good data in there, and explains in great detail what's involved here. But start out with smart grid. You know, this is a community built around energy, so you understand the importance of energy. And the world, whether you know it or not, the world is going through a major transition right now in how we produce electricity, how we distribute it, and how we use it. And it's touching everything from generation stations to control systems to switches to meters, controls on motors. I mean, you name it. There's thousands of products that are being developed. The world is going through a major shift in how we produce products for this market. You have a lot of great assets here in the community. PNNL, Bessel, Hanford, Areva, the Mid-Columbia Energy Initiative, and you've got the energy resources with the hydro and the wind turbines up on the hill. I mean, there's a lot. You really understand the energy. You haven't quite packaged that or brought the pieces together to attack this emerging industry. And there's still time. That the smart grid sector is growing at about 20% a year. It's about a $200 billion global industry now. Lots of products. I think there's lots of opportunity. We believe there's lots of opportunity here to pull some of the knowledge together, probably through the Mid-Columbia Energy Initiative is maybe a good platform for that, but start to target some manufacturing aspects and service aspects of this sector. Maybe a little bit less, having a little bit of less immediate opportunity, but certainly a long-term opportunity are the small modular nuclear reactors. Of course, as you probably know, that's the manufacturing of small reactors on a tractor-trailer size scale, shipping them to sites and sending them back to the factory to be reprocessed. It's a huge industry, potentially a huge industry. It's probably 50% government funded, 50% private sector. There are a lot of big players in that market. General Electric, Babcock and Wilcox are in it. Some big power companies are involved, TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority. There are some communities that are very aggressively going after the supply chain for SMRs. Knoxville, Tennessee is one. You have, again, a strong understanding of the industry. You've got great resources here with land and you know, very knowledgeable people. Again, it's a matter of picking a niche out of that very complex industry to go after and to try to attract investment. Really briefly, one of the great assets you have here is all the property, industrial property. You have it all over the region. Some of the property at Hanford is being repurposed and opens up some opportunity that we think there's a need for. It is solar testing or testing of new energy systems that you need to do in a big open space. We've had, Allison and I have actually had some experience on that down in Yuma, Arizona. Biofuels and bioproducts and I'm going to tie this again to the next slide, which talks about carbon fiber industry and which also ties into the wine industry. But you've got lots of raw material here that is in the world. We're finding ways to take organic materials and create fuels, but more importantly to create compounds and chemicals and feedstocks that can go into products, a wide range of products. With PNN, the research at PNNL and Bessel is really a game changer in terms of having that knowledge, finding a way to connect that into industries to start to attract investment. I think is going to be key. So this biofuels relates, or bioproducts relates to the carbon fiber industry. We're again on the cusp of a major revolution in materials that will go into all types of products, from automobiles to cell phones, whatever. The carbon fiber composites industry, you well know in this state, composites from Boeing and the aircraft industry. Those are very high-end, very expensive composite materials. What we're talking about here is composite materials that will be used for everyday products. The first big test for this will be in the coming years as we try to meet the CAFE standards for automobiles by 2020. I believe it's 50 miles per gallon. The low-hanging fruit, the last low-hanging fruit to shrink mileage in automobiles is the body and frames, to take the metal out of it. And so the carbon fiber industry and the composites industry will move into as a lower quality but very usable type of product. And there'll be many factories, many suppliers and downstream manufacturers that will come out of that initiative. One of the things you have here is the bioproduct knowledge, and being able to take organic materials, turn them into the raw material for carbon fiber and composites is one of the great triggers that will see the industry grow. So that is something that I think, again, through coordination of your efforts, you can target that investment. Specialized training, we had met the Hammer folks today, Mary and Karen, yes. We had tried to talk with them during our visit. We knew that the knowledge they have out there at that training facility and the physical assets there are world class. And of course, they're already bringing lots of people in. There is a significant need globally for training on homeland security, hazardous materials, emergency response. I mean, all the things they do out there. We think there's lots of room for growth there, and that could be something that TRIDEC could really help promote. So. Okay.
And the final set of industries fit within the food and wine cluster, which I'm sure many of you are going, da-da. But the key is we want to push you further in this industry and really look at how these types of functions fit together as well. So we're aware that RailX is not technically in Tri-Cities, that it's in Walla Walla County, but we also believe that that's a really strong asset for you because of the work that they're doing with the direct product delivery to the East Coast. The key thing to keep in mind, though, when we talk about targeting logistics, particularly for food, wine, and other perishable goods, is that you're not the only West Coast area trying to do that. And so we've looked at some of your big competitors, like up in British Columbia, down in California, and now the propel you into action piece of the logistics is, yeah, I mean, I could say it's going to happen. You're going to get some over time. You're going to get more, you know, one-up kind of wine distribution type of things happening. What we want to challenge you with this target, though, is to become the leader in West Coast to East Coast delivery product, because it's such a huge market. And whoever establishes, you know, gets into the market and really takes a lead in this, of pulling together all of the resources around the logistics, will then be a natural fit, because that's such a strong supporting piece of attracting more food processing. Make sense? So we have this is very tightly heeled. We're not just saying go chase any any logistics. And for that matter, you're going to get a lot of other kinds of logistics projects. We're just saying that in the way this fits in this cluster is being, you want to be the West Coast logistics hub for food processing and beverage. With that, then, growing your food processing, yeah, you have a lot of it, but what is lacking in the region and is an opportunity for you is targeting secondary and tertiary processing. So right now, there's a lot of work being done where you take raw product and converting it into a good that we all like to buy and enjoy eating. But there's work to be raising the wages, raising going up the scale of industry, if you will, climbing that scale with more advanced processing. And so that's the second piece of the puzzle. And then as your food processing grows, there is opportunity to attract more food processing equipment manufacturers, which really fit in the middle of that big chart that I showed you earlier. So plus there's innovation that occurs with that. And then when you tie in your asset of the Wine Science Center and the innovation that will be occurring there, and oh, by the way, when wine science centers and wine clusters develop in the way that you're approaching that center, because it's happened all over the world, you get the greatest benefit. And one of the benefits will be the innovation for this type of equipment. So we can't even imagine today probably the equipment for wineries, the new processes that will come out of that center that can physically be manufactured here if you're on your toes to grab it and make it happen here. So we're really trying to take and hugely expand on, although it was on the low end, we're pushing it to the middle. Remember that chart of taking, you know, fundamental logistics into advanced logistics, into creating market presence that supports manufacturing, and you can, you know, further expand your manufacturing. You have great road systems, but let's do, you know, more than that. And then to complement it with, let's start building the equipment that you need to advance processes in manufacturing that way, or food processing. And I know we didn't outright say it, but we live this world. We don't believe manufacturing is low tech. I mean, manufacturing today is very high tech. Food processing today, I mean, if you toured Lamb Weston, you're going to see that. So do not believe that we're trying to push down anything in your community. This is really about taking you to the next generation of being advanced. So when Don talks about carbon fiber, or he talks about smart grid, you know, that's not the only advanced manufacturing, the advanced new economy targets that we're talking about. Even in this cluster here, there's a lot of innovation that's occurring in advanced manufacturing, if you will. So we promised you that a study can't stand on its own. We had to recommend and push you towards some action. And this is a good summary of that. To start, we do see that you need some product development. And in this case, we're talking about real estate. You have lots of land, that's fabulous. But there's a lack of buildings, though. In the size of this market, we would expect a good variety of speculative buildings, high quality buildings. In fact, you're probably missing out on at least 50% of projects because you don't have a good stock of buildings right now. And don't think, well, they'll come back when they don't find a building. That's not really true. Typically what happens is they look for, in the market area that they're looking, if a company finds a building, but it may not be the building they really like, they may really like everything else about the community and decide to build a building there. So we can't encourage, how many of you are developers in the room? You know, we'd love to see some buildings come out of the ground that are aligned to your target industries. And in the intelligence about the industries, we actually can give you a lot of detail about the building size and requirements. The other piece that you're missing out on when it comes to real estate is a term that we call certified sites. That means that a third-party entity, most often site selectors, are coming into your community, verifying the actual site, the land that you're promoting, and making sure it meets all the requirements. And this helps mitigate risk and accelerate the speed of development. And 10 years ago, it was like people would have it and they'd say, we got a certified site, and they'd stand out, you know, from the competition. I'm going to be realistic. Today, if you don't have it, you don't have a ticket to the game. So we really want you to act now on this. In the control that you have the land already, you have an opportunity to move forward on that.
Okay, let me talk briefly about the industry targets and sort of what we think needs to happen. From a site selection perspective, you know, what, for me, if I'm representing a carbon fiber company or smart grid company, what am I looking for in the community? You know, I'm looking for progress being made on the path that is of interest to me. And as we said, you've got all these assets here, all this knowledge. What's really missing is, I think it's more than just partnerships, it's creating a mechanism for those partnerships to work better. So PNNL, Basel, the Mid-Columbia Energy Initiative, TRIDEC, all these groups have people that somehow, if we can just bring those people together around the ideas on firm initiatives and get those partnerships going around the targets, you know, we think that you'll put yourself on the map. And of course, industry engagement is critical, and that Arriva is an important player in many of these things. But there's lots of good industry opportunity here. Then of course, education and workforce training has to come along with that.
Before you go into sustainability, I think this is a good place to reinforce that although we were hired to say, you know, what should be our targets so that we can go recruit these targets. I think you heard today in Carl's comments, and we want to reinforce that as well, and this is a place that you do it, is that this is about building these industries, growing these industries in your region. And some of that will come out of recruitment. A good part of it's going to come about expanding local businesses, working with, trying to get their suppliers, vendors, customers around, so you can really have a comprehensive, fully developed cluster around these. And if you look at the industry engagement, the education and workforce development, all those types of things, your immediate benefit's going to be to your local employers and that engagement to the industry.
All right, just a quick word about sustainability. This community is still back in, I don't know, the 50s somehow when it comes, sustainability hasn't really been discovered here, which is really surprising, because you know, Oregon has a real sustainability bent to it. The west side of the mountains do. All through the east, cities have become very, more and more becoming focused around sustainability. And it's not just recycling and parks and greenways and that thing. It's about land use planning. It's about creating common space for people to gather. It's about nurturing ideas. And no community in the town, in the Tri-Cities, has a sustainability plan, which really is surprising. So address that, put that on your agenda and move forward on it.
And as a site selector, do companies ask about this?
And more and more companies are, 60% of corporations today have a sustainability mission plan or statement, and many of them follow those missions very closely. And so if you aren't on board with that, you become less attractive to investment.
Okay. And so competitive positioning is your marketing, and we have a long laundry list of things to help gather your information so that you can be ready to go to market. But keep in mind that the readiness, the target industry initiatives must come first. And then the packaging to go to market to really be the place for this industry, these particular industries, is important. We also would say that in your marketing, collaborations, we want you to think big and really go way beyond the regions of these two counties. And you're doing some of that already into Northern Oregon. And we would encourage you to do even more of that. As a leader in driving marketing collaborations, you really will get a lot of attention out of that. But through larger marketing collaborations, that is going to help you grow a larger pipeline. And once you have a larger pipeline of leads, then you can go after the project. But the objective here is we want the pipeline of leads to be really big so you have more opportunities to win investment and jobs. So we hope that we have not just been informative today, but that we really have compelled you to not just talk about something, but really drive change, use this to guide and push forward things that maybe have been held back. And I know there are a lot of board members in the meeting, and I would challenge all of you to be talking to them. If there was something that struck a chord to say today, to say, yes, you know, a board member, we should be doing that, or we'd like to be doing that. And the final thing I would say is we will be checking in on you because we're always curious how things progress. That could also be checking in with the project as well. So we hope to continue this partnership in seeing your pathway to prosperity continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to thank Don and Allison again for their insights and their guidance. Great job. And I want you all to know that an executive summary of the information they presented will be available on the TRIDEC website. So if you want to spend a little bit more time with it, that's a place to go and get some additional information. I want to thank you all for attending this 51st annual meeting of TRIDEC. As I said earlier, and Carl reiterated, that we really appreciate all of your support. We can't do it without you, and certainly your support has made a tremendous difference. And we all look forward to another very successful year. Thanks again to our sponsors, Bechtel National and Agri Northwest. Again, thank you for your support. We couldn't have done this event without you. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Drive safely. Thank you.